Okay, so I'm Simon Ward, Program Manager at LX. Our product range is Insight. Our program started off as an Insight program, and we transitioned across to the Maverick Spray Advisory, designed to help farmers control the drift of pesticides.
So Simon's being humble. The Insight program is a farm IoT solution which helps farmers to manage information on their farm for better outcomes, and they had signed up 100 farms coming into this program. But throughout the program you did pivot. You pivoted to the spray drift program. So how did this program help you to refocus on a different product in your portfolio?
Yeah, look, I think just Tim holding me to account probably refocused us. There's nothing like a fortnightly meeting and working towards that. I thought coming into this, look, the structure was really good. You know, we came in with the OKRs and the templates. So I think that was good to structure our thinking. I'm not sure that we've completely nailed strategic thinking, so it's good to be kind of forced down that track. And then, the feedback I got from Tim was not only, whether our particular approach had merit, but he was also able to kind of open some doors and reframe our thinking, whether it be by way of sending us in a different direction, talking about intangibles versus tangibles, or otherwise suggesting that we approach it in a different way, workshop it, approach certain people. So I think that advice has been really, really useful, and the outcome is, I just got off a call this morning from the government who are funding this program to the tune of $1 million, and CRDC, and look, they're really happy with the progress we've made, and we've got 6 months really to commercialisation. So yeah, the rubber's hitting the road.
Great outcome, congratulations.
Thank you.
Liam, you had to learn a few things the hard way as well throughout this program. So tell us a little bit about your tech and innovation, and then some of the things you learned the hard way through the program.
Yes. So at the start of the program, we're actually in the midst of a pivot, which makes a pretty interesting and useful kind of program we went throughout. So special thanks to Tim, I think, who really, the bi-weekly really helped us stay on track and kind of nail some of those strategic goals. But what GrowWave does is we're electrifying weed control in agriculture, and we do that through high precision kind of electric pulses. And so for this program, we really wanted to understand where this new technology should be targeted, I think, within the agricultural space. And some key learnings, I think, for us was really understanding where GRDC and the grain growers in Australia are right now, and importantly, kind of where they're transitioning over the next probably 5 years, or some of the new areas they're going to be focused on innovating. I think it was really interesting for us to learn where that is, especially in the grains industry, which, like Tim said, is kind of one of the largest sectors in Australia that you have to really be focused on to have a substantial impact in ag.
Can you tell us a little more about that? Because we had the bi-weekly meetings with Tim, and we had the monthly meetings with the other Tim, and those connections into the grains industry really helped to understand how that sector worked and who's who in the zoo and how you actually navigate through that. Can you tell us a little bit how it helped you and inform your pivot?
Yeah, so I think both Tims provided different insight. I think one was probably internal in how GrowWave should be conducting this, and the focused nature of our technical development. So we're still early on in the technical development space. But then I think the key GRDC learnings for us really were around some of the chemical regulation side, and I think they have significantly more insight to that than the average grower. Like we love getting out on the farm and talking with growers, but they're focused on their individual kind of farms and how they can use different chemicals. And it was really good to get kind of zoom out and get the GRDC perspective on that. I think that was really, really, really insightful.
Rob, tell us a little bit about Platypus, and then we'd love to hear from you what attracted you to the Fast Start program. What drew you in?
Okay, thanks, Evan. Rob Martin, CEO at Indine. We're the creator of the Platypus grain inspection platform. We were approached by the grain trading industry early on in the piece to develop a system to automatically inspect and grade grains and cereals Up to now, that process is done by human as it stands right now, and that leads to quite a lot of difficulty in the market space. Our interest in coming here at the beginning, first of all, being on a first name basis with the GRDC guys was quite a motivation at the beginning. So there was that. But I guess the discipline that comes here, and the previous speakers have already alluded to this to some degree. Tim's a bit of an enforcer and makes sure that those weekly forms are filled out and everything. And to be fair, that was something we actually needed to do. So in that space, it was good. And I will give my thanks to Hebbert as well, who, as our mentor in chief, has been the sanity checker in first resort. So some of the crazy things we came up with, she's tempered a little bit, and we've managed to go down the track in that sort of direction. In the meantime, we've had through the GRDC group, we've had a very strong response from the Department of Agriculture, and our product has now expanded from just being an inspection platform for the grain trading fraternity. It's now looking like it's developing into, as well, biosecurity inspection platform for grains and cereals departing and arriving in Australia. And there's been a lot of talk in the market, the grain trading press about things like copper beetles and things like that, which are regarded as a significant threat to our industry. So we think we can be a major contributor to that as we go forward.
So tell us then, over the last 6 months throughout the program, what do you think has been one of the main achievements that have come out of this? I mean, you've spoken to, I think, over 1,000 people in the grain industry. You've spoken to absolutely everybody. You've looked at your commercial model from several lenses. What would you say out of this entire experience, which I would say has been very, very, very packed for you? What has been one of the main achievements?
It's difficult to say what the main achievement was. Every day seems to be a main achievement. But anyway, if I was to look back in the last 6 months or so, I would say, I mentioned before that we started this journey based on an inquiry made by the trading fraternity, and it's become clear, and with through the lens of Tim and Hebbert and some of the other people here, that that's not the only market space, and we've since then broadened our horizon to include the biosecurity people I mentioned already are a particular interest to us right now. But there's also the grain producers, the farmers, people like that, and also the seed breeding people and some other market spaces as well. So in the beginning, possibly we were a little myopic and looking at a fairly narrow space. And I think the encouragement to perhaps dig a little bit deeper and look a little bit broader has been extremely useful and provided some additional opportunities to us that we might not otherwise have stumbled across.
Yeah, nice one. Mm-hmm. Peter.
Hello.
Sustenance just keeps going from strength to strength, but not without pain as well along the way. Tell us a little bit about, looking back, what has FASTA enabled you to do? But before you do that, tell us a little bit about Sustenance.
Okay, so first of all, thanks for being here. Sustenance, so I'm Peter, CEO of Sustenance. Sustenance is a biotechnology company that enables farmers and agricultural industry participants turn waste on industrial scale into a range of sellable products, and does that in an eco-friendly way, and essentially promotes and makes industry much more sustainable as well as much more circular. There's lots to talk about this, so I'm not going to bore you with that, but please catch me afterwards if you want to know more. When it comes down to GrainStart, or Grain Innovative Program, it's almost like stitching time saves 9, because for us, we have been working predominantly in sugar industry, and one of our key targets is and has been from early days with Artesian and Rob, who've been working with us over a number of years, to get and provide assistance and help in grain industry. So to get in there, this was exactly the program that we needed and required to turn us from where we are to get at industry penetration and presence and understanding of what's happening in there. So a number of things that Tim and Tim have provided over the last 6 months, the Tim combo, have actually enabled us not only to look at industry in a very different light and understand so many challenges that it experiences, but also how to proceed and how to go forward in making that a reality, taking our technology and making it applicable in grain.
Yeah, and tell us then a little bit about how you would make that shift going from sugar to grain. Like you've got the introductions through the program. What do you see are the next steps beyond that, beyond the program now to continue down that path?
Yeah, so from a technology perspective internally, our shift from sugar to grain is not massive. That's pretty known quantity for us. But the differences in industry structure, the industry dynamics, the players, how to actually approach the problems of decentralized versus centralized productions, access to energy facilities or anything else in the industry itself, that has been a very big unknown for us. So this program has helped us really try to identify a path using GRDC and helping us through it to start to identify the partners, to start to identify the problems of executing our solution on scale, and consequently getting that traction that, as I know, GRDC as an investor, as well as GRDC as the body, is looking for. So it's been really good.
And you've had a great experience at trying to execute at scale, getting your pilot up and running. It's been a great example of the challenges of rolling out technology in ag, isn't it? About,
Yes.
you know, access to power and access to water and
Whatever could go wrong did go wrong. Let's put it that way.
We had a flood as well.
We got flooded. Corona was in between all that. We had delays in supply chains. We had product issues. Name it, we've done it.
Yeah,
So it's been definitely an interesting challenge, to say the least.
that's true. Liam, tell us a little bit about what the Fast Start program and working with GRDC will help you do next as well. What will you do next?
I think talking with some farmers and also GRDC, we've been able to define the requirements for us to be a really commercially usable product in the grain space. And for some of the large scale farming, that's a pretty hard ask to get to the size and equipment that Grains operates with. So now I think we've been able to get those numbers, so we know what we have to get to, what's the benchmark, what's a farmer going to say, yeah, I can use that, or this is going to be a pain, I don't want to tow this little thing around. So I think now we know what that is, we can start building towards that. I think that's the hard part. We're going to build along there and start scaling up, kind of like another scale issue. So I think that has been a really important lesson along the way, defining success.
Yeah, and just for everybody, tell us a little bit about your experience with broadacre farming versus smaller farms and how, you know, trying to retrospect your tech onto large-scale farming and how throughout the program and probably a lot of conversations with Tim as well helped you understand those needs of broadacre farming versus small farming.
Yeah, I guess the answer's in the name. Broadacre is pretty broad in terms of how far those farms kind of travel. So we've done a lot of work in some other sectors, horticulture and grapes and everything in between. They all have their niches. Some have, permanent parts in the field you have to get around. But I think broadacre is especially challenging in Australia just because of the sheer size. We're some of the largest broadacre farmers, I think, probably in the world.
Right.
And even temperature out there, little things you don't think become an issue, but when it's 45 degrees and they still need to go out and spray and things like that. I think for a technology that's electrical, there's always some risks in terms of fire and other things like that. So there's different challenges within each sector, but I think grains is just the sheer hectares. We did this massive survey, and the hectares per hour that a grain grower can cover or needs to cover is literally a factor difference than some other farmers. So just the speed and size of it.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and it always surprises me when you know, you look at ag tech and you look at what needs to happen to make ag tech happen. There are so many nuances that you just can't predict until you're out there in the field and you're out there on the farm. I might open it up to a Q&A. I might ask Simon one last question. Simon, what's next for you?
So I guess through this program, we've focused on access to market and how we can get access to market. And look, the sensors have been rolled out by other companies previously, for better or worse. A lot of farmers, I think, are struggling to understand what to do with sensor data. But Maverick, we realised through this program that Maverick is something different. A pivotal point was at Moree Services Club a few weeks ago, where I was talking to a group of agronomists, so tribal leaders, as we called them in the program, sitting around the table, and I started by giving an overview of our sensor range, and they kind of were looking at their phones and they were a little bit switched off. And then when I started talking about the Maverick Spray Advisory, they leaned forward, the phones went down. And I thought, this is our way to actually take our product to market. It's a special sauce that sits on top of a sensor ecosystem that we've been looking for. So look, we're looking now to push Maverick as hard as we can, not only through those tribal leaders in the regions, but also channel partners. So we're talking to quite a few big names at the moment about how they might resell or how that arrangement might work.
Interesting, tribal leaders. Have any of you come across tribal leaders as well? Out in the grains industry or in the broadacre farming or in the sugarcane? How does that work when you're a startup and you're trying to get out there and connect with industry?
I think every industry here that we've seen so far, try to deal with, cotton and grain and sugar. Every industry has that.
Yeah.
Every industry has that key person, tribal leader, whatever you want to call them. And like in sugar, we have been lucky that in Northern New South Wales, we are actually working with a tribal leader. But going forward, finding those and influencing those is the challenge. That's exactly, they're key holders.
Yeah.
So that is one of the big challenges, how to get it across.
Yeah. Anyone else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think tribal leaders to us are just farmers that want to take this technology on board. I think are willing to take the risk and let it fail a few times.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part of finding a farmer. They all want the tech, or if you sell the solution, but getting them to go on the journey of it breaking in the field and they're not understanding why. I think that's probably another hard part, is finding the ones that are willing to see it fail again and again.
Yeah. Last thoughts there, Rob?
Yeah, in terms of tribalism, I have a particular slant on that, I suppose. As I said before, we deal mainly with the large trading industry, and there are a couple of majors in Australia who dominate that industry, and I'm fond of saying that working with those guys is like dealing with the KGB. You feel like there are so many secrets. People have been trading grain for 5,000 years or more, but for some reason they've got all these secrets, and they can be a bit fascinating at times. So it's been an interesting journey with them.
So I think, that partnership between Cicada and GRDC has been extremely valuable for the Fast Start participants, because opening up the doors to the sector, opening up the doors to the industry, creating those meaningful connections has really been helped to accelerate and move things forward. I might open up the floor to questions. Any questions for our fantastic panel? Come on, don't be shy. You can ask anything. These guys are really easygoing. Yes, Tamara.
Peter, it's fascinating to hear what you were saying about Sustinet. Maybe you can tell a little bit more about how you convert waste into
something. Yeah, sure.
Into many things.
Well, it's called magic, and then we stand there and dance around like a tribal leaders and kumbaya and all those things. But when we finish the rituals, it really comes down to using fungi as a natural recycler. And what we do is we basically use a lot of literature and a lot of study that's been done around the world, and we are looking how do we harness the power of fungi into breaking down cellulosic bonds and what happens nutritionally as well as physically to the material, what are the optimal conditions to make it commercially viable, because in some of our research and R&D programs we've cut incubation times from 6 weeks down to 2, and now we are working at how to cut it down to 1. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not going to be too technical, but basically what we do is we take a natural process and then try to scale it, optimize it, and make it accessible, as well as create products that can be brought back into the circular economy and not create additional waste problem.
As an animal feedstock?
So, yeah, the other part of the answer is, what do we make with it? We can actually make a wide range of products from the same platform. So one of the things that we can make is feedstock by changing nutritional profile, but we can also change physical profile and make polystyrene replacement materials or insulation boards or things like that. We can make human consumption food or feed supplements to reduce antibiotic use in animals. We can also create high protein extracts and other types of extracts for medical industry. Or we can create materials that can be used in fashion, like mycelium leather and things like that. So there's a wide variety of things that we can make from the same core platform, utilizing different conditions, species, strains, timings in the same process. Thank you.
That's a great question, Tamara, because each of these businesses have had quite a lot of challenges technically. And, you know, if you take Platypus, for example, and you look at grains and you look at the inspection of grains, and you would think it's straightforward, but grains are so unique. They're almost like fingerprints, aren't they? Each one is so different. Trying to classify them on different properties and different levels, but then working with government criteria and export criteria, and, you know, understanding the ecosystem and the commercial system around it is quite complex. So each of these technologies have actually had to overcome not just their technology challenges, but the challenges of their product that they're working with, and the grain is very, very unique. And then, of course, challenges of navigating the commercial ecosystem. One quick question from Tim.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say it for Tim.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You really can't talk that? Oh, no.
So Tim's saying, one of the bravest decisions that I've seen is actually how the GrowWave team has killed its first tech-based approach based on market learning and pivoting to a new tech. So if Liam can tell a bit more about that story, then that'll be great.
Yeah, that was a somewhat long and painful kind of transition. But so I guess you work on a technology that you partner kind of with the university to develop, and you push it, you get it into a lab, you get some success, you take it to the field, and you kind of repeat that cycle of learning, especially in energy efficiency is kind of our core metric in terms of, you know, kilojoules per plant or whatever you want to call it. And you get to a point within agriculture and scaling where you know this is the threshold you need to hit to get into market, kind of like I explained before. And we essentially couldn't get that efficiency high enough to get a big enough market that we could really take on and make this a viable company and product. And when you keep pushing against that limit of actual physics, it's pretty hard to go by that. And so eventually we had to come together as a team and with our investors and kind of say, we just don't think we can get this to that point. And that's a difficult decision to get to, because you put a lot of work into kind of 18 months of development and working the field. But once we got there, we could then take a step back and look at the problem. We really spoke to farmers around what do we need to hit to get there. And then we could look at other technical options that could get us there. Because this is a real problem. We've talked to so many different growers, and all of them are reaching out and saying, you know, we haven't had really that much innovation in the weed control space in 40 kind of years. You know, everyone has a spray tank, and that's kind of how it's been. We're getting more targeted, but the actual mechanism for killing them hasn't changed in a long time. And so we took a step back and looked at a lot of other technologies, what are other countries and things like that doing in this space. And we've kind of gone down to what was our Achilles heel in the last one, which is energy efficiency. And now we're focused on a technology that we believe will be the most energy efficient in the world. The theoretical max is much better for us in terms of what we can achieve. And so we've kind of gone back to prototyping in a lab, which is fun, but it's taking a step back commercially has been hard, I guess, in some ways, but it's also given us a chance to truly believe in the tech that we know we can get through hard work and repeating those cycles, we can get to market. So yeah, interesting 6-12 months, but I think we're on a path now that we believe in as a technical team.
And I agree with you, Tim. It is a very brave decision to do that because you believe so much in the development and the effort that you've put into it. But when you hit that commercialization, analysis and you realise that it isn't viable, what do? You have to make a decision. So it is brave. I have had the great pleasure of working and the great privilege of working with each of you over the last 6 months. I've watched how this program has helped push you forward. I've watched how the collaboration with GRDC has really pushed you forward. And so I would like to invite Tim back up on the stage and we'd like to award you with certificates of graduation. So Tim, if I could invite you please up. Come on, bro, you've got to do it like they were doing in school. Liam. Peter. And Simon. Thank you, Tim, and thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your dedication and your hard work in the next 6 months, and for the last 6 months, I should say, and we really do wish you all the best in your accelerated progress moving forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. One last clap for our